there's been a great focus on Nkandla this past weekend. Hundreds of supporters descending on the homestead of former President Jacob Zuma, flouting all COVID-19 regulations and most not wearing any masks. They pledged to fight against his going to jail. And that's after Zuma and his legal team gave notice of their intention to challenge a constitutional court judgment sentencing him to 15 months in prison for contempt of court for not appearing after a summons at the state capture inquiry. So let's unpack the way forward. Political commentator Makhosini Mgitywa joins us now on the phone this morning. Makhosini, it's great to talk to you. I'm so confused about what my first question to you should be about what unfolded over the weekend in Nkandla, what we heard from the former president last night. So let's hone in on this. On the one hand, he addresses his supporters and he says, I would rather go to jail than go to the state capture inquiry. Then he gives a media briefing and says, actually, I've never refused to go to the state capture inquiry. So, Mr. Zuma, which is it?
Yes, look, I think, when we're dealing with former President Jacob Zuma, I think we must lower our expectations a bit and not see him in his conduct as a former president or as a statesman, but see him as someone who is facing a myriad of legal challenges, and he behaves like someone who is facing legal challenges. So on one hand, he has to, keep his support base energized. He has to keep galvanizing the support base because that's his weapon, by the way. That's the boogeyman that he uses to say, if you touch me, this is what is going to. So he needs to, cultivate the support base, keep him interested in him, and the only message that would resonate with that support base is that he is a victim. And then now he has to now talk to the general population of South Africa, and now that's him now wanting to appear as a statesman, and that is to say, I have nothing to hide, there's nothing wrong I've done, I'm a victim of a witch hunt against me, I will go to the commission if needs be. But we know that his reluctance with the commission does not have much to do with the chair of the commission. That is the rules that he's decided he's going to use. Mm-hmm. The reason why former President Zuma doesn't like to be at the commission, because it will be humiliating for him, the questions that are going to be put to him, the cross-examination, all that he's going to be subjected to. But also, there is a possibility of further criminal charges later on, and he doesn't want to commit to a certain narrative when he answers questions. So I think that looking at the whole, issue, the commission should have accepted that, he doesn't want to contest the things that have been said about him and go on to make adverse findings about him. I think that sending him to prison during this time of a COVID and a lockdown, but also given the fact that he still has a big support base in KwaZulu-Natal, it was always going to be risky. I don't know if the country needed to take that risk. I think if I was sitting in the president's position, if I was the president of the country, I would have immediately commuted the sentence to house arrest, and that would have diffused the situation. There wouldn't have been anything that would have been driving people to go to Nkandla. And my final point, Michelle, is that the media also has to take some responsibility for this. We are going to have a wave of Nkandla infections that are going to affect the country. They're going to impact poor people more than anybody. And covering an event like that live, we always should have known that it was going to attract even more people because people want to be on television. Michelle?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's an issue that I think that all of us need to reflect on, that issue that you've just pointed out now, Makhosini, in terms of, how all of us are complicit in playing directly into the hands of the former president, actually.
Absolutely, you've hit the nail right on the head. President Zuma's strategy, at the center of it is the media. At the center of his strategy is the media. So, and he thrives on it, and he thrives on the attention that comes with it. So if you decide that you're going to cover that event live, you must be able to say, what is it that you are expecting? Are you expecting him to say something that he hasn't said before? I mean, I've followed this thing from 2005. I was right at the center of it. You know, there is nothing that is going to come out that is going to be newsworthy, in my view. The whole thing has become like reality TV, in my view.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, let's talk about what he had to say in that briefing just last night. It's ironic that you talk about this issue with the media because there were so many reports, actually, of journalists being assaulted at the gathering in Nkandla, but then he starts off his briefing yesterday by thanking the media for being there to cover the story. Also talking extensively again about the importance of the rule of law. It's ironic that he's talking about this, but he talks about respect for the judiciary on the one hand as well, but then he says this sentence, his 15-month custodial sentence, is taking us back to the days of apartheid.
Look, he uses the language that is going to resonate with the people he is talking to. Because there are people who are taking in those talking points and they are internalizing them, you know, and they're going to react in a certain way. So former President Zuma is playing a chess game so that everything that, you know, you do is going to be wrong. He puts for instance, he puts the government in a position where everything they do is wrong. So it is wrong to leave that, you know, event to go ahead uninterrupted. It's a super spreader event. It's against regulation. So it's wrong not to do anything about it. But it's also wrong to do something about it. Because if the police were to come there and try to dismiss those people, there was going to be some kind of violence. It is possible that some people could have died. You know, so we are placed in a situation, every move you make is wrong. So the best way, in my view, to deal with a situation like this is that we as South Africans, we must start looking at our addiction to Jacob Zuma. Because I think as a country, we are hooked on Jacob Zuma. We are addicted to him and everything that's got to do with him. Because if a decision were to be taken, for instance, that not much media coverage, not much attention is given to it, it's a matter that would soon disappear. He is no longer president, and there is no chance that he can come back and become president again. He's a former president, and there isn't much damage he can do to the country unless we put him in a situation where he sees prison and he doesn't want to go to prison, and he's got an army of supporters who are armed, by the way, from what one can see on social media, and you don't know where those arms are coming from, and these people have now been mobilized, and you're not hearing anything about them being demobilized now. So you've got people who have organized. There are some firearms amongst them, and you don't know who controls those people. I think that puts the country in a very perilous situation. I think the way to break this thing is not to give so much attention to Jacob Zuma. I think even for the commission, I don't think that they should have pushed for him to go to prison. I think it should have been sufficient that he doesn't want to defend himself against allegations that are made against him and make adverse findings and take it from there.
Are you hoping to hear something or other from President Cyril Ramaphosa? He said a lot about, you know, the legitimacy of the judiciary on one hand, the way the ANC itself has conducted its business. He says the SG is being prevented from addressing the crowd. He is an elected official, according to Jacob Zuma. It again takes us back to the days of apartheid. That's according to the former president. I mean, what does all of this mean for the governing party?
Look, the president is sitting in a very difficult position. Like I alluded to earlier, that, you know, he has to avoid a Marikana. He doesn't want Marikana 2.0. And quite interestingly, it was President Zuma who was the commander-in-chief of the South African Police Service. when those miners were killed, but somehow it's blamed on Ramaphosa, and he doesn't want a repeat of that. But unfortunately, this situation now and the crisis that the country is in calls for the president to provide leadership. And providing leadership means making decisions or taking decisions that may be uncomfortable even to his own faction, let alone to his own party. And I think the leadership that I would have expected out of him is that because the president, Michelle, has one major, that's number one responsibility of the president, it is to protect the citizens of the country. Protect them against the virus, protect them against, an invading force or anything of the sort. But his main task, it is to protect us. And now, to protect, the people of South Africa means that let's avoid anything that can put the country into a situation of instability, particularly during a time of COVID. And I think, in my view, what would have been a much more sensible decision for the president to take instead of being quiet or observing the situation, it was to commute the sentence to house arrest so that we can defuse the situation. And, because people don't want President Zuma to go to prison. They don't want to go into jail. And I don't think that his age is conducive for him to go to prison. I think house arrest is more of a suitable punishment for him.
Makhosini Mgitywa, thanks very much for your time this morning. That's all the time we have for this discussion, which I'm sure we could have had for another hour or so on the various implications of what we saw unfolding in Nkandla just yesterday. The former president himself seen at numerous times without a mask in the midst of crowds of people. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, he says going to prison is a risk to him because of the pandemic. He also says, according to his now newly appointed spokesperson, that he is unable to wear a mask because of a particular medical condition. Several doctors on social media questioning what exactly such a medical condition may be.